Shubhrupat. Kushi Bishambar, Amar Nam, Kate Ruud. Good morning, happy Sabbath. My name is Kate Ruud. I'm a Walla Walla nursing student, and I have 2 years left, which halfway there. I took a gap year last school year to volunteer at an orphanage called Bangla Hope in Bangladesh. I really wasn't planning on taking a gap year. I had always dreamt about going overseas and volunteering at different places and organizations, but I never thought I would be doing that while in college. However, things led to that decision, and I'm so glad I did. I just, I remember not doing anything the right way to sign up to be a student missionary. I was pretty late to the game, if you want to say that. Usually in the January, students go to the student missions department and kind of just start their application process and everything. And because I had thought I was going to do it, I just didn't think about it. And at that time, I was working at the chaplain's office, and student missions and the chaplain's office kind of work simultaneously. But I didn't really know much about the program. So pretty much in mid-May, about 3 weeks until school got out, I just decided I should talk to the missions chaplain. Her name is Brittany. And so I scheduled an appointment for a Friday, and I went in, and I was like, hey, can you just tell me a little bit about this program? And am I too late to sign up if I really wanted to? And so she kind of gave me an overview, and she's like, no worries, you're not too late. There's still things that are needed to be filled. So she asked, what are you interested in? And I was like, well, I've always wanted to work in some type of orphanage, and because I am in medical student stuff, I was like, well, anything medical would be great too. The first thing she said was, no one from Walla Walla is going next year to this place in Bangladesh called Bangla Hope. And students in the past have done it and they've loved it, and she kind of told me random things about it, and it sounded really good. And then she went on to 2 other orphanages that were situated in Africa. And although those orphanages sounded really good, I don't know, something was in the back of my head of Bangladesh. And honestly, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I really didn't know where Bangladesh was on the map. I knew it was in Asia, but I just didn't know where. And a distant relative of mine, him and his family, they were missionaries in Cambodia for a long time, I think about 10 years. And I just remember always hearing stories about that, and it's like, wow, Asia, I want to go there one day. And so after that conversation, I took that weekend and I really prayed about it, and it was kind of hard because, I'm in the nursing program, and it was kind of, again, late to the game, and I didn't really know how I was going to pull it off. But I really felt the Lord just opening doors up, and so the next week, Monday or Tuesday, I think I went back into the office, and I was like, all right, I'd love to do it. Let's get started. And she's like, okay. So even though most students, again, start January and usually end all their processes right before school ends, I only had 2 weeks. So it was not as crazy as I thought. It was pretty smooth. All the paperwork went fine. Everything worked out, and I'm super thankful and super blessed. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has supported me, prayed for me, thought about me, and or helped financially. That has been a huge help in me being able to experience this journey, I guess you could say. And also to everyone who welcomed me home. That was really special, especially me being in quarantine in a trailer for 3 weeks. I just want to say a huge thank you, and you guys are so thoughtful, and I feel so blessed. So before I show you any more pictures or anything like that, I'm going to share with you guys a video I kind of put together for Walla Walla, actually. They asked me to make a little video of kind of what it looked like in a day for me at Bangla Hope. So yeah, I'm going to share that with you guys, and then we'll get to more pictures. So that was the video, and as you can see at the very end, I did have lice, but don't worry, I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it. But yeah, that's a really big problem over there, everywhere. I'm sure probably everywhere in Asia as well, but people are always just picking out other people's lice, and that's just the way it is. So we're going to do a little geography lesson this morning. So as you can see, this is Bangladesh, and it is bordered by India for the most part, and a little bit on the southeast for Myanmar. And then as you can see, Nepal and Bhutan are up north, but they're not bordered. Bangladesh isn't bordered by them. And then the Bay of Bengal, it's a coastline, so that is also bordered by that. There are 64 districts in Bangladesh, similar, I guess, kind of to our 50 states here. And the capital, as you can see in the central point in the country, is Dhaka, which is the capital. So this little red arrow, that is where Bangla Hope is. It's in the little tiny village of Hazupur, and it's in the Joypurhat district, of course the northwestern portion of Bangladesh, and it's near the town of Hilli. Hilli is a border town, so trucks from India come through a lot and cause traffic, but also it's important because it imports many Indian goods. So the local economy is sustained by rice and personal farm animals. Most of the land around is used to grow rice, and in between the biannual rice harvest, mustard, which is also called sharishas, and potatoes are planted and harvested. Although it is small, you can find most things you really need in Hilli because it is bordered by India. And to renew our Bangladesh visas, I and some of the fellow SMs, student missionaries, would have to cross the border. And I had the most frequent one. I had to cross every 60 days. So that was a fun because you would just go for a day and then come back, and it was cool to see India a little bit as well. So this little green arrow a little bit up north, it's situated right under the city Saidpur. And Saidpur is where we would go to take a domestic flight to Dhaka, and that's usually the executive director would go and do that sometimes. Sometimes it's actually cheaper because driving is a long time than more gas. But yeah, it's about a 2-hour drive from Bangla Hope to Saidpur, and then about a 50-minute flight from Saidpur to Dhaka. So as you can see on this slide, the blue line, so from the red arrow, Bangla Hope, down to Dhaka, it's about 200 miles total. But it can be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. It really just depends on the road, on the traffic, on the day, really anything, weather, holiday, whatever. Sometimes I think the record has been 7 hours, and then the longest has been like 17 hours or something like that. So this is just kind of like an average. But yeah, to put this into perspective a little bit, from here, Pendleton to Portland, it's about 200 miles, but it only takes 3 hours. So that's a pretty big difference. It's kind of crazy, but that's just how life goes. And sometimes you can be stuck in like a city along the way, like Bulgra, for so long. You'll just be stuck in a traffic jam, and you'll literally have your car stopped for up to, 2 hours even. So it can be pretty crazy. And this is obviously the United States, and the red state is Arkansas. And Arkansas is about the same size as Bangladesh, which is pretty crazy because Arkansas is pretty small. And there's only 3 million people that live in Arkansas. But then I go back to Bangladesh, and the population is about 165 million people. That's crazy. And it's like, what? Like, how can so many people be in such a small space? And again, that leads to the 8th most populated country in the world, which is pretty crazy as well. So now I'm just gonna kind of go over the 7 months I was there, kind of the first day to the last day. So I was supposed to be there till like the 2nd of June, but unfortunately because of COVID, I had to leave early. So we'll talk more about that later. But I was supposed to be there for about 9 months, I think. So I flew from Seattle to Singapore to Dhaka, and that was about a 2-day journey. And we get to the Dhaka airport around 1 a.m., and then someone picks us up, and we head to the old dental clinic, and you can see the picture on the left, I believe, is the balcony the first morning we were there. And the reason why it's the old one is because they transferred to a different part of Dhaka, and they're just keeping this kind of like apartment for when kids need dental work or when kids need a hospital or even the staff from Bangla Hope. So that way you don't have to book a hotel. It's just people know that they have this spot and it's always going to be there. Then the middle picture is my first breakfast. Do not be fooled by the spoon because Bangladeshi people eat with their hands. I don't know why I had a spoon, but I did. And I had rice there, there's dal, there's cooked vegetables, so good. And then there's pomegranates and some grapes. I love the Bangladeshi food. It's so good. I mean, if you like Indian food, you will like Bangladeshi food. So it's super good. I really miss it. I wish I could make it just as good as there, but I can't. So I've tried. And then the last picture is a rickshaw. So I came end of September is like closer to the end of the monsoon season. So sometimes it rains a lot and there's just always a lot of water that pools, especially in one area. This guy, he's a rickshaw driver and he's just fixing his bike. And it's really interesting that Dhaka is the rickshaw capital of the world. There's so many rickshaws, and I mean, if you go to Dhaka, it's just plastered with rickshaws everywhere. I think they say there's about 1 million rickshaws in Dhaka alone, which is pretty crazy. So this next slide is kind of our 10-hour drive from Dhaka to Bangla Hope. And just seeing some things on the road. There's these men hauling things on their head, which they do a lot, even in construction. They'll be hauling huge rock. And then this guy vanning his bananas somewhere. And there was this video I took. I don't have it on here, but I mean, there's literally a mile long of a market just for bananas, and it's pretty crazy. But their bananas, they're really good. And then the last picture is just an average day. It's usually men that are just sitting out at a like little side shop, and they're just talking, or they're smoking, or just taking a break from work. So yeah. And these pictures are the first time I saw Hasbulpur, our Hindu village, and it's pretty crazy looking back because it's all green, and it's a beautiful green, because the rice harvest isn't till the end of November. So everything's looking pretty, and you can see there's lots of ducks and farm animals, and it's pretty flat. The northwestern part is pretty flat. Other parts, like the eastern part and northern part, there's it's more jungly and there's more mountainous regions, but this part was pretty flat and farm life. So this is the gate when you come in to Bangla Hope, and I remember it was one of the afternoons we got there, probably middle of the week or something, and we get in there and we have this big van, and then we get out and there's like a whole crowd of people, kids, staff, everyone, and I'm tired. It's been about almost 3 days of travel, and I'm still like in shock. I'm somewhere else, as beautiful as it is. Anyway, so we get out of the van and they're all lined up and they start singing, and then we're just kind of standing there, and it was really cool. I wish I would have taken a video, but I didn't. And then after that, they like came and gave us lays, and then they just started encircling us with questions and stuff. And originally, not originally, when we got there, there was already two other student missionaries, two from Southern Adventist University, Allison and Annette. They had been there just 10 days before me, and Faith. Faith didn't go to Walla Walla, but she's like a high schooler, and I didn't even know she was coming on the trip till like the night before we left. So, but yeah, so there's four of us. Anyway, they're all singing, they're all talking, and then we get our stuff up in the front and up in our room. We lived right above the clinic and then right below the boys' hostel, the older boys' hostel. So it was a crazy first few days, for sure. This, I believe, was the first night. It could have been the second night. Can't quite remember, but I know it was one of the first nights. And the age group that definitely like always latched on immediately was definitely like the 5th and 6th graders. They just wanted attention, and they would always be like, "What's my name? What's my name? What's my name?" And I'd be like, I don't know yet. And just so that was hard the first month, because they would always be like, "What's my name?" And I'd be like, oh, "There's 160 plus of you guys. I can't remember every single one of your names like that." But I did eventually learn all of them by the time I left, so I was pretty proud of myself for that. Anyway, so yeah, we went in one of their hostels, and we were just hanging out, getting to know each other, and that was a great time. This next slide is, again, the first few nights. They love pictures, as you can see. And on the photo to the left, I believe, there's 3 men standing up in our chapel. I guess you could say it's like a little small room. And the week that I got there, it was actually week of worship. So the head division of the SDA conference, I'm not saying this right, in Korea, Bangla Hope invited him here, or there, to Bangla Hope. So I was on the very end. I think I only listened to 2 of their talks. But I took a picture of this because it was hilarious. The one guy that was preaching, he could only speak Korean. So the guy on the very left could only speak Korean. And then the guy in the middle, I believe his name's Dr. Lee, he spoke Korean and English. So he translated it to English. And then the guy on the far right, am I saying this right? Left or right? All right, well, you can barely see them anyway. But the guy on the other side, his name is Ponwell, and he is the sponsorship director / chaplain kind of guy. And he could speak English, but then he would translate it to Bangla. So there was Korean, English, Bangla. And in translation, you get so many things like missed, but I thought it was funny, and they did a pretty good job. Yeah, so that was fun. So the first Sabbath, we went to Sam's. Sam's is, I guess I could explain it like an academy, so like a high school kind of dormitory setting. They do have some younger grades, like I think they start at grade 5 or 6, and they go all the way through 12th. There's 800 kids there, and their hostels, which dormitories I guess for here, are humongous. But the reason why we went there was because some of our kids from Bangla Hope actually go there. There's about 20, 25 of them, and some of them were getting baptized. And so that was pretty special, the first Sabbath, to go and witness Bangladeshi baptism. Really how they do it was really special. I love learning about culture, and it was really cool to see how they did that. So this is Johnny, or Bitan, getting baptized, and he's one of the older boys. I think he was in class 8, or grade 8. So that was really special. This next slide, so about a week and a half to 2 weeks after being there, we went into Hilly, which is that city I was telling you about, right on the border of India, and to get dressed to get tailored for our traditional clothing. They call them salawar kameez, and the salawar is the pants, and they wear baggy pants, and then the kameez is like the top dress kind of thing, and then you also get an orna, which is a scarf. That's the female dress anyway. And so they always get their clothes tailored. So this guy, he was really great. He tailored us, and I'm shy of 5'6", so I feel like I'm pretty short, average for a woman. But there, I'm taller than a lot of the men. So when I went and got measured, he was like, "Oh, you're so lambar," which means you're very tall. And so when I got my clothes a week later or so, the arms were a little bit short and the shoulders were a little bit too narrow, but it's okay. It still worked out and it was fine. And then the middle picture is before you get tailored, you have to go to find fabric that you want. So I think I got about like 5 different outfits, including Sabbath wear. And yeah, so they have so many different patterns, and they think that you'll love bright colors like bright pink, bright green, like fluorescent. But I was like, no, let's do a little bit like deeper, simpler patterns. So it was kind of funny. And then that day we went, it was raining fiercely, so we had umbrellas. And let's see, next slide. So usually hilly, looking at the middle picture, it's pretty jam-packed full of people, but on rainy days, a lot of people don't come out, so it was pretty vacant. And then you'll see on one of the sides is the trash, and it's very polluted there, especially in the big cities like Dhaka. A lot of people wear masks and stuff. It's pretty sad, you'll just see people just tossing trash. And not that we don't do that here, but we pay people to pick up our trash. Unlike there, they don't have enough income to do that. So, and that's not a priority at this point. And then the other side, that's a shari pattern I picked out. And yeah, the clothing shop. This next slide, it was a Sunday, and it was monsooning pretty hard. This is probably one of the funnest days. I mean, it was pretty early on, but it was raining so hard, and there was so much water, ankle deep. It was just really pretty, and it really cooled down because I came when it was still pretty hot, so it was nice to have a little bit of a cooler temperature. These girls in the middle, they were like saying, come, you're gonna get cold. Like they don't like going out when it's raining because they think they're gonna get sick, which is, smart, especially if you live in a heat environment like that, but it was really fun. So this is on one of the sides, it's on the rooftop. I'm looking out, just watching it rain. It was really nice. And then again, this is the same day, we're on the roof again, and the girls don't want to come out with me. They're just like, come back in, what are you doing? And then in the middle picture, there's some staff and some kids. This is like the central part of campus, and they're just having fun, getting their feet wet, the brave ones, I should say. And yeah, it was a fun time. And then on the other one, it's on the rooftop again. You're looking down. Those buildings off in the back are a lot of the staff housing, and then lots of the laundry area as well. And this picture is us ankle deep in the muddy water. That was fun. And again, some water. You can see the middle picture. It's just flooding kind of, and they've had flooding problems in the past where it'll even get up in the buildings, but the architect or the structure of it is built to like get rid of the water, like not let it seep in. And then these are just some of like the boys. So a couple weeks, I think this was probably 3 weeks down the road, we are making chapati. You can see on one of the sides. That's like their flatbread. Kind of looks like a tortilla. But yeah, it's made out of rice flour. And they do it a certain way. And if you don't do it a certain way, they tell you. And it's pretty hard, actually. But we have chapati day every Wednesday from like 1 to 3. So I always like helping out a little bit with that. And then in the middle is some of my students. So the first 2 weeks, I just kind of got kind of settled and stuff like that, and just tried to get to know the kids. And then we all had a meeting with all the SMs and the principal and director, and just talked about what we would be doing, like long-term type of things. So they had already assigned us, and well, this is the thing. The reason why I wanted to go to an orphanage or something medical was because I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to do that, and I don't feel like I have the capacity to do that, but they had already made a class schedule with all of us in different classes. So they had me in class. They call it classes, we call it grades, so if I do it interchangeably, that's why. But grade 4, I was supposed to be the teacher for science and health, and then help out in English, and then I was supposed to be the teacher for grade 7 for computer IT. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, you know what, it'll be an experience, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. So I did it, and the interesting thing with their school year is it starts from January and ends in December. So it's kind of nice. All you have to say is 2020 instead of 2020, 2021. It kind of just like, kind of gets confusing. So it's really nice. So because I started teaching the middle of October, I only had till their school ended in like the middle of December. So I only had 2.5 months ish. And so that was pretty crazy, lots of challenges, but I really appreciated that experience for that time. So other things that I did was I started teaching piano, and I think I did it about 3 days a week during study hall, which you saw in the video, and some during lunchtime. So that was fun. Yeah, and Bangla Hope, because the executive director is American and he loves music. He brought a piano, and now they have handbells there. Right as I left, they brought the handbells in. They have violin, guitar, like lots of things, which is great because Bangladeshi people don't really have the opportunity of music. So I think that's pretty special that they get to do that. And then I also gave morning worship once a week in morning chapel, as you saw in the video. Starts at 6:30. And I also helped the other missionary from SAU, Southern Adventist University. Her name was Allison, and she was like the on-campus nurse, and then she taught like a few health classes, and that was it. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. But it's okay. And because I'm a nursing student, we were able to do things together sometimes if she needed help, and that was awesome. And then pretty much the rest of the time, we just hung out with the kids, got to know them, went on walks. I mean, just lots and lots of different things. So that's pretty much what I did. And these 2 little girls, they're so cute. The one on the ground is Me Too, and the one up top is Amari, and they're so cute. The grades, like 4th grade down, they don't really speak much English, and some of the staff don't speak English at all. But when you get up to 5th, 6th grade, you can start having okay conversations and up. So it was better than I expected for the language barrier, but there was still a big gap, especially with the younger kids. So I'd say probably a month in, every year they have a Hindu festival. Now, in Bangladesh, Muslim is the main religion, about 90%, and then Hindu is 9%, and then 1% is other, so Christian and things like that. But yeah, because we were living in Hazarpur, which is a Hindu community, they put on this festival, and it was awesome. We were able to go one night with our friend Chetney. I'll show you a picture of her later. She lives in the village, and it was really fun to go experience a totally different religion in a totally different way, and it was really special. So they have so many like pop-up things that they put on, as you can see in one of the photos. Um, and then in the middle, it's kind of almost like a fair, like a carnival. So they'll have like, like little shops, pop-up shops with like candy or toys. And then the other photo is an idol photo. So you'd go on this like huge tent, and that's where like the worship happens. And in the very front, they'll have all their gods kind of displayed, and then they would be having one guy chanting and dancing around the front. And it was just interesting to experience in real life a different religion and what it means to them. So I think that was really cool. And we went at night, so they also had lights, which was pretty cool, kind of decorating that area. So this is a picture a little bit later, but I wanted to show it because, me, I'm in the middle, and then Allison is the one next to me, and then Annette is on the side, and then Ponwell, which again is the chaplain slash sponsorship director. There was a funny story. Allison, being the nurse, would always have someone knocking at our apartment door, like, Allison, Allison, like, we need you, we need you. So one day, someone knocked on the door. She was like, someone's like dying, and she was like, okay. And so she ran down, and she went into Ponwell's house. And he was on the couch, just sitting down, looking a little bit flustered with a blood pressure cuff on him. And she was like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And he was like, well, I think I'm dying. I don't have any BP. And she was like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, no blood pressure. Like, I don't have. And she was like, oh, okay, let me see. And apparently he had the blood pressure cuff on backwards, and he thought that he was dying because there was no numbers. And so it was just kind of funny. And then once Allison told him how to do it and like checked it, he was like, he felt so embarrassed, and he like made her a huge like plate of food and everything. And it was so funny. Anyway, that story was hilarious. But yeah, that's another interesting thing is over there, they think that checking blood pressure will solve problems or figure out what a problem is. So people all the time, if they don't feel good, if they feel a little bit sick or a little bit overheated, they'll be like, oh, check my BP, check my BP. And we'll be like, okay, well, let's sit down first, let's get you some water, things like that. And anyway, it's pretty funny. One of the older girls, her name's Rosie, she would wake up from a nap or just close to nighttime and just be in tremendous pain. Like she couldn't breathe, like she was literally gasping for air, and she would have horrible chest pain, and she just did not look good. And she's had this before apparently, but never this bad. And so I'd say like once a month, once every other month, she'd always had an episode. And the first time it happened, none of us SMs knew exactly what was going on. So we were like, what? And we would obviously check her vitals and all that, but we couldn't. I mean, we're not doctors. We don't know all that much without supplies either. So we were like, you need to take her into the hospital. And so she'd go to the hospital, and they'd say, oh, she's fine, like, and they would just give her gas medicine or something like that. And I don't know, it never went away, so I don't really know. But yeah, it's weird how people who go to the doctor will come back, whether it's a heart problem, whether it's a skin problem, whether it's an eye problem, always with gastric medicine. Like they'll always give you gastric medicine, no matter what, even if it's not in your intestines or anything. So anyway, it's really interesting. Um, so yeah, Allison, another story is um, Allison and myself were in the clinic one night. Um, we were just probably putting Band-Aids on kids, checking their ears or something like that. And right next to the clinic, we have construction going on. There's a girls' dormitory being put up, which is awesome, and then like a multi-purpose building. They'll probably use that for a church and maybe some offices. Anyway, there's always construction workers there, and sometimes they'll get hurt. There was one time a guy was carrying something on his head, and it like rolled off his shoulder and just like, but it cut him all over on his head. So we'd spent hours trying to clean his head and pick out all the rock that was in there. But yeah, it was one night, and we were finishing up right before worship, and all of a sudden, like, two workers come in. Some of the boys brought them in, like, these guys need help. One had like a weird rash, and then the other needed his blood pressure checked. It's fine, it's normal. Allison checks the blood pressure, I deal with the rash, and then before we know it, 20 guys are lined up, like, ready for their BP, and it's so funny, like, I don't know. It took a while for us to get through all the blood pressures, and then some of them had other elements that they needed checked, and so it was funny. It was a good time. And the last story I'm going to say for this slide is one time, this was later on, but there's always about one security guard or so, and one day, I don't know what happened, but he fainted. One kid saw him faint, and he fell over, and then the kid said he was throwing up blood and everything, and one kid came and got me, and I went over, and then by the time I got over, there was a crowd of people from the village, like all around him, just like looking at him, staring at him. And I was like, I get over there, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And they're like, oh, he needs his BP checked. I'm like, what? If he's throwing up blood, and I mean, I could see he was profusely sweating, like huge drops of sweat were coming down his face, and he did not look good. I mean, it almost looked like he had a stroke. He could barely talk. He had a little bit droop of a face. He couldn't remember much. He couldn't walk very well. Yeah, it was just a bad situation. I was like, someone needs to get him to the hospital. Like, I had to run, and I had to grab Ponwell, and he came down, and it was a crazy mess, but he's okay. So I don't exactly know what happened, but anyway. So just stuff like that happens all the time, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. So now here are just some photos I'm going to kind of go through quickly of what we do at random times, mainly Sabbath afternoons. So this is Noah. He's so cute. He's in 4th grade, so one of my students. Yeah, he's so cute. And this is me too again. And she has an older sister, Mo, and they look so much alike, and they're so cute. I think they're about a year and a half apart. And these are some of the older boys in their hostel, just hanging out. And Sabbath afternoons, a lot of the younger kids love to color and draw, so they were outside doing that. Some of the boys being crazy. Some more. This is in the back, so we have like a little garden. Sometimes, we grow like cauliflower and cabbage, tomatoes, cilantro, things like that. Yeah, back there. And this is just looking out onto the rice fields from one of the fences surrounding the campus. This is Emily. She's a crazy one. She was, let's see, she's in 5th grade, 6th grade now. This is Oishi. She's in my class 4. And as you can kind of see, there's like a little sidewalk, and those little buildings over there are the staffing houses. And so you can kind of just, there's always like a sidewalk around the entire campus, so it's nice because you can take walks, and the girls love to take walks all the time. So you go around the whole campus like 30 times, and they'll be happy. This is the papaya trees, and they're still growing. They're still green. This is Amari. And this is one of the ladies, a grandma to the Halders, which they live just a floor above us. And it's really interesting. I love this picture because it really demonstrates how the villagers, mainly the adults, kind of go for photos. Here, we always like to smile or do something silly, but there, it's just a straight face, and that's what they like. So I think that's interesting. This is Barto with a little staff kid. It's really sweet to see the older boys really love on like the smaller kids. I really like seeing that, and they love the babies. They love the babies. So this is from our apartment, and again, this is the gate being able to come into Bangla Hope. So that's kind of our view. It's really pretty. I love going up on the roof in the mornings and hearing the Muslim prayers and like watching the sunrise. It's really pretty. And there's another view. This is Bitan and Joseph. Joseph was our main van driver, transportation mechanic guy, and I loved him so much. He was one of my favorites. Every time we'd go anywhere, he was always, let's go, and he was just the sweetest guy. He was a man of few words, but he was so funny, like so funny, and I loved every time we went somewhere with him. And these are the boys. They love motorcycles. It's funny because every motorcycle they'll call a Honda, even though it might not be Honda. They'll just say, "Oh, look at the Honda," it's something else. But yeah, they love them. So they'll just like sit on the staff. There's like staff parking for the motorcycles, and they'll just pretend like they're riding away. So I guess this is the traditional clothing like I was talking about, the salawar and the kameez and the orna. And this was a Sabbath afternoon. We were just rained, I think, that morning. And we were just kind of cleaning our shoes because we got really muddy because there's a lot of mud everywhere. And the boy next to me, his name's Isaac. He's so cute. He was in 5th grade. And this is Mark cleaning his shoes. He's one of the older boys. So something else we would love to do with the kids, especially on Sabbath, is go into the village, Hazrulpur, and like walk around. It's so fun to like get to know the villagers, even though the language barrier is very like large. It's still just good to go out and just smile, just kind of make small talk with a little Bangla we knew. And this picture right here is a funeral meal. So someone had died in the village, and they're all just supporting the family and eating a meal together in like the common area in the village. And here's some of the locals. Just talking. And a little local boy. Another thing too is in the Bangla Hope campus, not only Bangla Hope students go to the school in the campus, there's also kids from the village, which is really cool. There's not that many. I think there's about like 7, but it's pretty cool to have people from the village come and get educated from Bangla Hope. And here's them making a big meal. That's a big rice bowl. They eat rice. Like I'm not joking. When I first went to Sam's, that academy I was talking to you about, um, we had lunch there, and they would literally pile on. It felt like a mile high of rice, and then they'd pile on everything else. And I mean, you could barely finish it. But by the end of the time I was there, I was able to pile it on easy because they don't get that much nutrients in their food and diet. So, um, in order to like live, you have to eat a lot. So yeah, there's always rice, lots of rice. And this is a woman in the village. She's just doing her chores. Looks like she's kind of scooping up or getting a pile of cow dung together. And this is a dad getting his kids to school. And this is some of our boys. We were just kind of walking around, and they found this van. They call these vans. It's not rickshaws. The rickshaws have like the hoods on them, but they call these vans. And this is what like little taxis in like the smaller villages. So then they have like benches on the sides. And then this is us just walking around. We really like to take like the older kids out for walks because they don't get a lot of time just like alone with us. So it's pretty special when we can do that. And this is a sign to our village, Hadrupur. So each week, a certain grade, so like grade 10 or grade 5 or something, we go out to a nearby village and we do like a afternoon Sabbath school for some of the village kids. And I mean, we sing songs, we can do crafts or draw pictures, and things like that. So this time I went with the 9th graders, and yeah, the village kids are so cute, and they really appreciate the activities we do with them. So this picture is the group that went to the village, and the reason why there's a red arrow on this girl, because that's Chetney, the girl I was telling you about that took us to the Hindu festival, and she's so sweet. She somehow, I don't know how, but the director was able to get in contact with her, and she goes to Bangla Hope every Friday to learn English with him for an hour. So she is a fast learner. I think she said she was only doing it for 9 months, and she's already almost better than some of the kids that have been doing it for a few years. So she's a fast learner, and she's so sweet. And I love it whenever we can go visit her in her house, or she can come to Bangla Hope. And then on the way back from like taking a long walk, we like going through the rice fields. It's pretty fun, a different type of view. As you can see, it's getting a little bit more brown because it's about, I'd say, a month away from being harvested. And they're also getting taller. And then I always like going on walks because you never know what you get to see. There's this man carrying a bamboo branch, and it's just crazy, just the things you'll see. I mean, this is super long. I couldn't even finish with the whole picture view. But yeah, it's pretty spectacular. And then just finding things in campus, like mushrooms, really anything we can do to get the kids out of trouble, I guess. So every Sabbath evening, a certain grade, so they'll just go through like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of a thing. They'll put on like a sundown program. It's about a 50-minute long thing. And this time it was the 6th graders, and usually they'll always do some action songs and maybe like a drama or something. But this boy in the red, his name's Jacob, and he is the only boy in his grade, and his grade is 6th grade. And they're the biggest class. They have about 26 kids, and he's the only boy. So he's a trooper. He's funny. He's cute, and he's always up there doing action songs. Like whether that be morning worship or night worship, I mean, he's always up there, and he just loves it. So in mid-November, so I've been Bongo Hope for about a month and a half, almost 2 months. I was invited to go with a small group of the faculty from Bongo Hope and the other student missionaries to travel around Bangladesh. And the reason is because each year they do like a 10-day visit to all the Bongo Hope sister schools. So it's not just our main Bongo Hope campus. There's also small little schools that usually go from K through 3 or up to 5. And they're in random villages all spread out, mainly in the south part of Bangladesh. And we also went to other academies like SAMS that can go from grade school up through high school to visit kids that are being sponsored through Bongo Hope. I know it's a little confusing, but yeah. And the reason why we do that is we go to evaluate each school and the students and how they're learning, and also the teachers, and then we give them their yearly funds. So it was pretty great because I was able to travel around. We went, well, as you can see, the arrow on the top on the north side, we went first, so we kind of just went straight across to our first place, and then we went down to Dhaka, and then we went down to Gopalganj, which is like the south place, and then we went back up to Bongo Hope. So I'm going to do a few of those slides real quick and just kind of show you more of what Bangladesh is like. So the first night we stayed was up in the north, like I said on the map, and it's really close to the Indian border. This time, though, it has beautiful mountains, and it's completely different, and it's only, 100 miles away, which is pretty crazy how different terrains you can have. And it was really beautiful green. I don't know exactly how many hours it was because we stopped a whole bunch of times, but the last 2 hours before we got to the big academy was the most bumpiest ride I've ever had in my life. It was, I feel like I've had pretty crazy rides, but that one was exceptional, and I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I couldn't wait to get there. And I think we got there around like 8 p.m., so it was already dark. And I didn't really realize this, and none of the SMs realized this either, but we get there, and they always have a program for us. Like every time, every year, they always have a program. And the program can be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, so it depends on the school. And they always have dancing, some type of maybe a music or like singing, and then like a big talk, speech thing. So we really didn't expect that, and we get there and we walk in to this 600 people packed auditorium. Bigger than this sanctuary here. And each chair is filled with students. And we're walking in, everyone's silent, and we're just like walking single file all the way up to the front of the pew that they had for us. And it was just a little awkward, but it was okay. And we all sat in our own seat. I think total on the trip there was about 9 of us. So we get there, they go through the program, and then the executive or the director gets up and she says a few words. She's really graceful up front, and then she goes one by one down the row and introduces everyone and makes them stand up. And all the student missionaries, so Allison, Annette, and myself, were all on the very end of the pew, and I was like, I don't want to stand up. None of us wanted to stand up. We just wanted to stay there and not do anything. And then she gets to us, and she doesn't say we have to stand up. And I was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to, stand up. And then she started talking to us, but she's talking in Bangla, so you kind of hit or miss what they're saying. Anyway, then she motions for Allison to come up to the stage, and we're all like, what? What's happening? So Allison comes up, and um, the executive director just kind of talks a little bit about Allison, and then she's like, in English, she's like, okay, now say a few words. And Allison's like, what? So there's a translator, and she says a few words and then steps down, and then it's Annette's turn. And Annette has to come up, and she says a few things about Annette, and then she has to say a few words. And now at this point, all their few words are all about, oh, it's so beautiful here, thank you for the invitation, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, what am I going to say? Like, they've already said that twice. So Annette steps down, and I come up. She says a thing or two about me, and then there were so many people. It was like 9 p.m. at this point, and I just didn't really know what to say. I think I said maybe one sentence and then stepped down. Anyway, so the whole entire trip was like that. Every place we went to that was an academy, we had to say a few words, and it was a good learning experience for impromptu speeches. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. So this is the campus in the morning, super pretty, super green. And this is not that auditorium, but it is a similar one. I think that's Sam's. And then we're just walking around, getting a tour of the campus. So leaving from that academy, we start traveling back down to Dhaka, which is our next stop. And we stop at this China clay. And it's really pretty because this, to them, is very special. And so they actually, they sell this type of rock, clay rock. And so we were able to get up on the top and everything. It's really pretty there. And you could see a little bit of the mountains toward India. It was a nice little stop. Now we're in Dhaka, and we're there for a few days. The SMs had to get our India visas, so that way we could actually cross the border when we needed to. And we were also visiting a few of the schools nearby. And we were able to get on a rickshaw ride, which was pretty cool. Yeah, they're really fun. And then after we were done in Dhaka, I think we stayed there 2 nights. Then we went down, we crossed a river by ferry, and I really like this picture because I really like those boats, little speed boats on the river. It was a really hazy day though. We get on the other side and we have some lunch. The food in the different parts of Bangladesh were incredible, extremely good. I wish I could make it again, but maybe I'll go back someday. And then we also got this pineapple guy. We got some spiced wasabi fresh pineapple cut and put in a bag, and it was really good, really delicious. And then we also got a few things in the other picture for the trip as well. So this is Allison. She's the nurse, campus nurse, student missionary. And most every school we went to, which I think we went to about 12 in all, maybe 13 or so, they gave each of us a coconut, like a full coconut to drink, and they'd also cut it and have us eat the meat. Allison was the only one that could not stand the taste of coconut water. And I like coconut water, but drinking the coconuts are huge. It was really hard to even drink mine, and then she'd be like, we gotta switch. So we would turn a little bit, and then she'd give me hers that hasn't been drunk, and I'd give her my empty one. And then I'd have to drink it, so I had 2 full coconuts pretty much every time we went to a school, and yeah, it was pretty crazy, but then she looks like she drank it and she didn't. So one of the schools in Gopaganch, which that's the southernmost part that we went to, this is another big academy, and on the academy they also had an orphanage. And I just wanted to show a picture of what different orphanages kind of look like. But yeah, there's a lot of beds in this one. The one in Bangla Hope, the one where I was at, there was max, I think about 15 students in a room. But this one had, I mean, a lot more. I think probably 30. So, yeah. And then these are just some cute pictures of the kids at the sister schools. They're really cute. They're mostly, again, smaller elementary grades. And this was one day we went to a villager in Gopaganch area. We went to her house, and every time you go to a house, they always give you the best food that they have. Always some type of fruit and maybe like a biscuits and some type of either water or tea or something. But she was really struggling. She had a grandson that needed to be sponsored to go to a school because just there was a lot of information involved, but it was really hard for her, and there was just a lot of abuse going on. And so we were like, we prayed with her, and we just like tried to understand her story, and hopefully was able to get someone to sponsor this child. So we were there probably for maybe an hour or two. And in the southernmost part, unlike the north and the west, it's very swampy, marshy, and a lot of the times they go by boat to get to a certain village or even to your own home. So we were able to get on so many different boats, and it was really cool. This was one of the first ones we went on. It was pretty big, but it was really fun. And again, each time we went to a school, they would always do some type of dance. These were my favorite. They did a great job. Sometimes they would only do one dance, sometimes they'd do 10 dances, or they would do a single dance or double or a group. Anyway, it was really cool to see the different dances and just how they put programs together, I guess, and their dress as well. This is a different kind of boat. There's no motor on this one. The guy up top, he's the one doing all the work. It's bamboo paddles, or paddle I should say, and he goes from one side to another. And as you can see in like the background, it's pretty marshy. There's a lot of lily pads everywhere, and lots of people just live on the water. Like that's a home right there in one of the corners in the back. So this was my first time on the Honda or motorcycle, and we were in Gopaganch. We were going to a village, and Panwell, he had a motorcycle at one of the big academies stored there because he's the sponsorship director, so he goes down south pretty frequently. So anyway, it was really fun. I was able to go on the motorcycle, and I mean, really, if the best transportation is a motorcycle because you can pile on your whole family, and instead of taking 8 to 12 hours from Bangla Hope to Dhaka, it would probably only take 5. So it's very speedy, and the roads are so much smoother when you have one thinner tire than 4 thick ones. So yeah, that was a really fun time. And a different type of boat. This one was a little wooden motorboat, and yeah, it's crazy how this is just a normal transportation for them every day. And here's some of the kids in school, in the sister schools. The SMs would like go and take pictures for the sponsorship stuff. while the faculty were working on other things. So we would do the fun part, I'd say, and kind of talk to the kids and stuff. And this guy, he's so funny. We were getting on to a boat, and he came by on the road and was trying to get us to buy his bird. But the bird was not liking him controlling the bird, so the bird was just like flapping his wings, and the guy was just standing there trying to control it and trying to yell and sell it for a long time. And this picture is just, we were on the boat, and it's just one of the houses that are on there. Sometimes you'll see families come out of their house and just kind of watch all the boats go by. So, this is a cat. So many cats, they're cute. And when we were there, we would be eating a lot of different food, super good. The villagers would make us a feast every time. This is a lady weaving a basket. And then, so pretty much the night we got back was the first harvest day for cutting the rice. And it was a big ordeal. It's about a 3-day thing. So Thursday morning we wake up and we went straight to harvest. Here's some of the boys. And Mark is showing me how to cut the patty, which is rice. And they're all cutting. We'd make it a game. We would be all in a line, and then we'd see who would win to the other side of the little square. This random picture. And the kids always like taking a break because they get too hot. And then the first time going over across to India, it's a huge, crazy long ordeal. It takes like 2-3 hours to get over, and then an hour or 2 to get back. So we'd pretty much be out all day. That's just the crossing. There's on the other side of the sign, there's the train tracks that are the borderline. And this picture is kind of crazy because there's a lot of checkpoints you have to go to, and this is on the Indian side. And I was like writing something down because the Indian side, they do it all by books, so they have huge records of books, and Bangladeshi side does it all online. So I was writing like my name and stuff, and then one of the guards like motioned me into a room, and I was like, what? And so I went in there because what else are you supposed to do? And she went in there, and I didn't know what she was gonna do, and there was another lady in there, and they were like, oh, we want a photo. And I was like, what? And they're like, we want a photo. And I was like, oh, okay. So they wanted a photo, and that's the way it is over there. Sometimes you'll go anywhere, and you can see random people taking pictures, and it gets kind of crazy, but yeah, you kind of get used to it. This is just the streets in India. It's interesting, the difference between India and Bangladesh, kind of like here in Canada. Minor differences, but definitely different. And we always go on the bus in India. So this is just another Sabbath. The kids love taking photos, as you can see. And this is me and some of the kids. That's Sarah, and then Joelle. So this is a very blurry 4th grade picture, but I think we were in science class, and we were just getting out, and they just love pictures, but they can't just stand still, so that's the way it is. And this is just a fun, I think they were singing up on the rooftop. So the reason why I put this picture on here, I know I don't look too happy, but I think one of the kids just like, I don't know what they were doing, but we sit like this. Bangladeshi people sit like this, and it's just, if, a lot of times they don't have chairs in their homes or something, so you just kind of squat, and it's fine. So actually, the first few months, it really kind of hurt my lower back because I would be sitting on the floor or like this all the time, but then you get used to it, and it's just natural. So later on, close to Christmas, we finally realized that just the SMs could go out on walks without the kids. So it was nice because we could actually just kind of like, enjoy the scenery a little bit more. And there's always baby goats just lying all over the road, and they're so cute. And then some scraggly pigs all the time, you'll see. In this picture, I wanted to show you guys because it's so interesting. They, on the trees, I mean, so pretty much people in the village work to live, to survive. So one thing you'll see all the time is women gathering cow poop, cow dung, and into huge piles, and then they'll just be like making these cow pies, kind of, these little circles, and they'll paste them onto the bark of a tree, or they'll have these like sticks, whatever feet long they want, and they'll paste them on there, and they'll let them dry in the sun. And it's kindling, fire starter for, I mean, you cook all the time over the fire. Just so many things you use for fire. So they'll spend hours doing that every day. And this is just a view of the village that we're in. And these kids will go, they have about an hour of playtime during the weekdays, and they will go from one game to another, but they will, like, the first time I got there, they were all obsessed with dodgeball. Dodgeball and football, or soccer. Obsessed. And they did that for like 2 months. And then they switched to a totally different thing, like kabaddi, which is a traditional sport, or tag. And later on, December, January, February, they were obsessed with badminton. So we put up bamboo, like kind of stilt sticks, and then got a badminton net, and they would just play that for hours. This is snake. I really don't like snakes. They really freak me out. I never had seen one in Bangla Hope at all, except like a large snake skin in the back of like the garden area. But every time the kids saw a snake, they would kill it. Even if it wasn't poisonous, they would just kill it. And then they'd put it on this pole and go around and chase all the little kids with it. And they could do that for hours. But yeah, this snake was found on the roof, the tin roof slanted down on the clinic. And I don't know how it got up on the roof. That's really gross to me, but yeah, so they found it and they smashed it with bricks. Really gross, but. So this is Anne-Marie. She's in 8th grade, and before her 8th grade class trip, I think it was like the beginning of December, I don't know what she was doing. She's playing sports or something, and she broke her finger. Like the tip you can see is a little bit bent near her nail. And she broke it. She went to the doctor. The doctor splinted it, and then she went on her class trip, and he told her, you can't put it in water or anything. But of course, they went swimming on their class trip, and she came back, and we opened it up, and it had this, this is even a little bit better than it was before, but she had an awful ulcer, pressure ulcer, and it got really bad. Her skin was starting to slough off, and it stunk. So yeah, we would do wound care on that like 2 times a day, and that was crazy. So Faith, one of the SMs, and Allison, one of the SAU SMs left. And Allison was the campus nurse. And I had talked to the principal, and I was like, I really appreciate the opportunity for me to teach, but I'd really like to, if that's okay with you, become like the new nurse on campus in place of Allison. Obviously, I'm not an RN yet, but um, that would be great. And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, go ahead and do that. That would be awesome. We need someone in there. So I was really excited. So instead of teaching in January, I started I was the nurse, and I also tutored English and kept the piano teaching as well role. So it eventually healed up, and she's okay, but her finger just healed the wrong way. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, we would clean it twice a day, and yeah, she'd always have a bandage on it. So the end of the school year celebration, they always have these big, big parties, and they always do it last minute. They're very last minute people, which you just kind of have to adjust and be flexible. But each class usually has a dance that they do, and it was really cool to see the kids dressed up. And the boys wear lungis. That's like the traditional type of formal dress. And then sharis, which I'm wearing a shari, and Jasmine's wearing a shari as well. And then this is the 9th grade girls doing their dance. And yeah, they decorate like the stage like crazy big. And then this is after, some photos with them. And at this point, it's mid-December, and it's so cold. I mean, I wore double socks sometimes, and hats, and jackets, and everything, so. And then everyone joined jalopy, which is a certain dessert that they have there. It's similar to funnel cake, like at the fair. But yeah, they just make them like a huge batch, and everyone gets in line and has a bite. So every Friday, all the school-age kids, not like the little kids and like the babies, they will have Pathfinders for an hour or 2 hours. And they always start here at the front of campus, and they always do these stretches in sync, and then they always march, and then they go off and do their own age group activities. But I thought it was so fun. I would always go up on the roof and watch them because, yeah, it looked pretty cool from up top. So this is inside a villager's home. A lot of the villagers' home is cement, mud-based, so it's pretty cool, which is nice, especially when it's super hot. But yeah, it's very simple, it's very minimal. They don't have a lot of money, so it's very bare. And yeah, their beds are pretty hard. Another interesting thing, this one doesn't look like a family bed, but they have these things called family beds, and it's bigger than a king-size bed. And the whole family, dad, mom, cousins, aunts, brothers, sisters, will all sleep together. And that's just the way it is. So. And I thought this was really funny. This is on one of the beds. This is in Chutney's house. And there's just a random chicken laying on the bed. So. Now it's about Christmas time, a few days till, and in each village, usually they'll have a man-made pond. And what they'll do is they'll put like fish in, and then they'll like multiply. Yeah, and then by Christmas time they'll drain the ponds, and they'll catch all the fish, and you'll see them out there in the mud, like with like maybe an inch or two of water, like going around, like catching all the fish and putting them in their buckets and stuff. And there's so many different kinds of fish, it's kind of crazy. But this is just one of our security guards at his home, just kind of cutting and getting ready for a yummy fish dish. And here's some other staff. These are really small fish, and yeah, I don't exactly know what they're doing. I think they're killing them. I don't know. I really don't eat that much meat, so. But yeah, I actually did eat some meat. I had some fish and some chicken. You kind of have to because it's just respectful. If you don't, then it's just like um, you don't like what they make. So. And then this is me. I think this was actually Christmas Eve. We were making coconut pita, and pita is dessert in Bangla, and they're really good. They're like these rice. It's like a rice dough, and then you put in coconut and date sugar, and then you like make it. You kind of push the edges together, kind of like I guess a pie. And this is the lady that taught me. She's so cute. She's very particular in how you do it, so that way all the stuff will stay inside. And this is Luke. I guess Christmas Eve tradition they have is once like the lights go out, which is about 10, the kids will come out and they will decorate all the staff doors. So yeah, this is Sue Teacher's Madam. Sue Teacher Madam is the executive director, and Luke made her like a little Christmas tree, it looks like, and decorated her door with like paper chains and stuff. So. And then me and Annette, so after Faith and Allison left, me and Annette it was just us two. So we were the leaders for Friday Night Vespers, and we did like a little Christmas pageant, and these are just some of the girls that were in it. So I think beginning of January or something like that, this lady here, she's a caregiver in like the little kids room, and we call her Mashi because that's kind of similar to aunt in English. Anyway, she is married to this security guard, and we call him Uncle, which is like Sir. And they live in the village, and Mark, which he's actually here next to Uncle, he was like, oh, we should go and like take a walk. It was a Sabbath afternoon. I was like, okay. So it was just him and me, and we went to their house. And we go in their house, and something happened, and Mark was like listening and then translating to me in English, and somehow little CNGs are like mini taxis, I guess, and they have a motor, and it's like really small little like box car. Anyway, they were coming back home from their Christmas vacation, and somehow the driver ran into a tree like head on, and the whole family, they have 2 kids, and them 2, they all got hurt, and they all had knee problems, and the mom, Mashi, had almost like a broken nose a little bit, and I was like, oh no. And they could barely walk, the son and the dad, and so I went back to Bangla Hope, and I got some knee braces and then some oil, and I headed back and showed them how to put it on, and they were really grateful, and they're so sweet, like, they're so sweet. And they got better within a couple weeks, and yeah, I'm just so grateful because it could have been a really worse accident. This is one of the caregivers in the baby nursery room, and she's holding Polab, which is the newest member to Bangla Hope. He's 12 days old, he's a preemie, and there's a couple stories that are pretty horrific, similar to this one, but his mom, they lived in Punch Bibi, and Punch Bibi is about an hour from Bangla Hope. And the dad was out working. They're a young couple, probably not even 20 yet. And the dad comes home from work one day, and he doesn't know where his wife is. And apparently she committed suicide, and how she did it was she burned herself to death. And the father didn't know what to do because he had to work. I mean, he had to provide. So he heard about Bangla Hope, and he brought pull-up in, and he was so sad. But the good thing is that he can visit his son and things. But it was just a really sad situation, and there's just some stories with the kids that have really similar horrific ways of how they got to Bungalow Hope as well. So this is Tina. She is now in 7th grade. And one night, it was, I think, New Year's Eve or something. She was running, playing out in the dark, and she fell somehow, and she broke her collarbone. And I noticed that something was wrong, and I went over there. I was like, Tina, are you okay? And she's a really crazy, wild one, but she was really calm. And so I was like, there's something going on. So I was like, let's go to the clinic. Go to the clinic, find light, and sure enough, I could tell the bone had popped off, and she needed to go to the doctor. So I put on some ice, and I called Miriam, who is technically the nurse for Bungalow Hope, but she deals more with like the transportation and stuff. So I contacted her, and then they got her into the doctor. But Mikey is another one that broke his collarbone when we were there, and he had to get surgery as well. So yeah, it's too bad. And then bee season happened. It's crazy because it's probably February time, and you're looking at all these beehives, and there's only maybe like 8 or so. And within a couple weeks, I mean, it grows to 64-ish hives, and you're like, how did that happen? And they're not just growing in number, they're growing in width and length and things like that. And I mean, you'll see kids just trying to swat like bees all the time and things like that. Anyway, but I think it's really cool. I mean, every year they get honey and stuff, and so yeah, it's really, really cool to see how fast and quickly the bees will produce and grow their hives. So this picture, one day me and some of the girls, we were like walking around, and we went up on the 2nd floor to some place that isn't fully built yet. And I was just we were all counting the beehives. And we went up, because they're all in really random places. So we went and we found one that was kind of hiding in the corner. And so far the bees I've gotten super close, like maybe a foot away from the beehive, and they haven't done anything. They're just focused on their job. But this time I had my phone, and I was really wanting to get a close-up video of them. And so I was like going a little bit higher, and I was so close, maybe like 6 inches away. And all of a sudden, I knew I was in trouble. I heard the swarm of those bees, mad as ever, and they came down, and before I knew it, I was stunned in multiple places on my face, and I threw my phone, and one of the girls picked it up, and that's why I was still trying to get all the bees away from me. But yeah, I got stunned everywhere, like so many places on my face. But thankfully, I'm not really that allergic, so it didn't really affect me that much. But lesson learned, don't mess with bees. This is, they hire a guy or two to come and harvest the honey. So what they'll do is they'll smoke them out, and it's crazy that they're just doing it without any covering or anything. I think one person was telling me that they actually inject with medicine, so that way it's not so bad when they get stung. But yeah, then they put it in this cloth, the hive, and then just like wring it out. And this is them smoking the bees out, and they have this big bowl of the hive with the bees. Yeah, so it's just a crazy ordeal. I think it took them about 3 hours to do this whole thing, and they only did like 4 hives, so that's pretty crazy. And the honey from that is delicious. It's just organic, fresh, really good, non-processed. So, and of course, everyone gets stung. So we would always be doing baking soda and water. And Jacob somehow got in a fight with some bees, and he got it all over his body. So They always have this white stuff. David, one of the older boys, he got a bee stung on the top of his eye, and it was just so swollen. His eye was so swollen for days. And sometimes people are just really allergic to them. So in the winter months, so they have pretty much the same seasons as we do, except they don't really have fall. It's more like summer, monsoon together. So in the winter, it gets extremely foggy, which I've never seen this much fog before. It lasts this long. And yeah, this is just an early morning, out for a walk. Just so much fog. And I think the reason why it gets so cold in the winter is because of the fog, and that there's so much perspiration and moisture that it just makes everything kind of more cold and wet. So yeah. And this is just a big pot of dal. The kitchen ladies are phenomenal. They make, 3 meals a day for 170 people, 180 people. And they are just working all day long. And it's fun to go and like help them cut things sometimes, but yeah, it's good stuff. And just warning you guys, this next picture is a little graphic, so if you don't really like medical things, you probably should turn away to keep your sanity and not throw up. So this is Madame Leachel's foot, and I'm going to tell you the story. She was going to the market in Hilly, and if you walk, it's probably about a 2-hour walk maybe. So I think she walked there, and she got all of her stuff she needed, and then she didn't want to have to walk back with all of her goods, so she waved down a bicyclist, and I think she knew him or something, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll take you to Bungalow Hope. So she got on the back, made sure everything was all situated, and then they start going, and maybe halfway to Bungalow Hope, for some reason she had to shift her weight a little bit to one side, and I think somehow it didn't work out so well, and the bike and everyone fell to the side. But the reason why she got this was because it's not a spur, I know that. Whatever it is, spoke, thank you. All right, the helper's up here. The spoke of the back tire got her and just cut her whole heel. And she said she could even see the bone. There's blood everywhere. It was just a nasty sight. She cut through tendons or muscle, just lots of stuff. Anyway, they rushed her to the hospital. They got her cleaned up, stitched up, and then she came back. I didn't really know any of this was happening until maybe 5 days later. And Ponwell calls me or knocks on my door and is like, hey, can you come to my house? Because that's his wife. Madame Leachel is his wife, sorry. And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, no problem. So I go over there, and I was like, so what happened? And, he tells me the story, and he's like, I was just wondering if you could, give her the antibiotic injections, because we'd have to go to the hospital or a doctor every 2 times a day to get this done. And I was like, oh, yeah, for sure. And then before I realized it, I had already said yes. In nursing school, I really have only ever done just the arm injections, but this one was in the buttocks. And it's an antibiotic, so you have to push it in and then put the medication in, and it takes about 2 minutes. So I was like, okay, let me read up on about it, and then I'll come and we'll do it. He's like, okay. So I read up about it, come back, and I do the injection, and I did that for about 10 days straight. And it was really good practice for me because it definitely do hurt. I can't imagine. She was great patient. She just kind of stayed still. The first few were definitely harder because her body wasn't used to having so many needles in her side, but it worked out, and I was able to clean the wound every day, and it healed up pretty nicely. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy time. This is me giving her the injection. Her little daughter there, she would always like to watch, and yeah, she always thought that was fun. And then the reason why I have this other picture is this little bag here. It was a lifesaver. I had gotten it in India because I needed something to put stuff in for traveling. And thank goodness, because the last week or so I was in Bangladesh, I had to, there were so many things. One of the staff members just had a baby and she had a C-section, so I was able to put all the bandages for Madame Leachel's foot and her and all the injections and everything. So it all worked out. It was all good. So we were supposed to go to India middle of March to with Southern Adventist University on their spring break mission trip, and it was a medical mission trip. And so we had gotten all of our plane tickets, train, everything was booked, ready to go. It was Wednesday night, and I had to get ready for my worship talk on Thursday, and we had everything packed. I wake up in the morning, 6 a.m., and I look at my phone, and it's a text from Annette saying, the trip's canceled, I'll tell you about it more later. And I was like, what? So I didn't tell the kids. I went and had my worship, and I went back to the apartment, and she kind of explained everything, something with this epidemic that was going on, and people weren't able to get on flights, and if you did, you might have to be quarantined. So they decided not to, and we were both really bummed because, you know, we had just purchased all this stuff, and of course everyone else too in the States, and but that was pretty sad, but we understood, and it was okay. So then about a week goes by, and there's been more and more news, and I had read stuff about this COVID outbreak, maybe end of January, early February, but then that week, middle of March, it just kept getting more and more and more, and picked up, and Annette finally decided she needed to go home. She couldn't stay if the country had a lockdown. She had to go back to finish school, and obviously I did too. However, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, it'll blow over, it'll be fine. If I have to stay an extra 2 months, it's okay, you know, not a big deal. So she decides on a Wednesday, and 2 days later, I'm getting so many emails from Brittany, the chaplain, missions office. I got a FaceTime call from Albert Handel, the Walla University head chaplain, saying you really need to come home. Most of the other SMs had already come home in the beginning of March, and there's only a few of us left. And then I kind of had a few conversations with my family, and it just, I don't know, I felt really at peace with my decision of staying, but yeah, it escalated so quickly. That week was like the longest, craziest week of my life. Friday rolls around, I wake up, I'm getting even another email from Brittany saying, you have to come home, you're under, you know, school restrictions and liabilities, and I was like, what? And Annette was leaving Saturday night. This is Friday morning. I was pretty in shock. It was like you rip off the worst Band-Aid in the world, you know. I've been there for 7 months. The kids became my family. I loved it there, but I had to go. And so really breaking the news to the kids was pretty hard, but it was really sweet. Friday afternoon, after everyone kind of knew I was going as well, we played in like the irrigation system mud for a while, and then we took an outdoor shower, and here's a picture of us. And then another one of us all wet. And this was my last Sabbath afternoon, just a few hours before saying goodbye. A lot of us took pictures together, and they're just moping around, you know, all sad, and of course I am too. This is Jacob, so cute, and then Savannah, we got really close, and in this picture she's really sad. She looks really mad, because I had to go. The crazy thing is, Sabbath morning I wake up, and I get this email from my Singapore Airlines company saying that your flight is canceled. And I was like, what? Okay. So I quick got on the phone with Brittany, and I'm like, my flight got canceled. What am I supposed to do? She's like, okay, let me figure it out. And apparently Annette also had her flight canceled, completely different airline, Turkish Airlines. And so her, Brittany, and Annette's missions chaplain kind of collabed and got us on the same flight, which was from Dhaka to Hong Kong to Chicago, and then we split ways, and I went to Tri-Cities, and she went to North Carolina. But yeah, it was pretty crazy, crazy stuff. And then all of them waiting for me, I was still working on cleaning wounds and stuff, and all the kids are just waiting outside, like waiting for me to come back out, so that way we could hang out for the last hour or so. And then this is goodbye time. Everyone just kind of piles in a big circle, just like at the beginning of when I got there 7 months prior. And they're all crying, and I'm trying not to cry because I know if I cry, then it's just going to go downhill from there. So just kind of hugging everyone, saying goodbye. It was really sad because I only had about 48 hours notice before I was gone. And so saying goodbye to every single staff, every single kid, it really was impossible. But we did our best Sabbath morning in chapel, me and Annette. We did like a goodbye, cutting of a rope or something, and so it was okay. And then that's all the kids and me just hugging each other. And then this was my very last photo in Bangladesh, and we caught our flight from Saidpur to Dhaka. And I can honestly say that even though it was extremely sad, just like a crazy time, I feel incredibly blessed to have that amazing experience in my life. Those kids, like I said, are my family, and I may never see them again, but they will always be in my heart. And I feel also incredibly blessed because I'm able to communicate with them still. Sometimes they call me, because some of the staff have Facebook, so we do some face calls sometime, and that's really special. And I've learned a lot about God's grace, His loving grace, because even though there were only a small handful of humans that I was with, I mean, He just showed me how much one can love another, and forgiveness is huge. And He loves us even though we mess up. And I messed up a lot. I got frustrated. I got irritated. I got mad. I was sad at times. But through all those things, God prevailed, and He came through, and I learned a lot about who He is and His character. So my prayer for each of us every single day is that we will continue to be more like Jesus, whether that is through our experiences, through the things we see, and through others, because people are God's image. So we're just going to pray and end this, and thank you so much for listening, and yeah, thank you so much for your support. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for the Sabbath day. Thank you for the ability to have experiences, whether it's ones like this or just ones in everyday life. Lord, we just want to be more like you and to show your love, to spread your love, and to be your love to everyone we see every day. We love you so much, Jesus. Thank you for all the things that you do, you provide, you have blessed, and you will continue to sustain us. We love you. Amen. Thank you.